You ready? Three things. Let's go. Three biggest lies your agency telling you right now. Number one, just study alone in regional areas and you will get your PR. All right. You heard that before? You heard something like that before? Hey, just go into regional areas. Just study there. Just study alone is all good. Just study, you get your PR. Have you heard that? Put in the comment box below if you heard your agency in Sydney, Melbourne, or Brisbane told you that. Leave the comment box below. Say yes if you have heard your consultancy say something similar. Just study alone, man. Just go there, do another degree, do another 2-3 years, do another 4 years. Just study alone and you will get your PR. Now, this advice is very, very wrong because of many reasons. Number one, obviously that's not the case. Obviously that's not the case. Now, in most states these days, in most regional areas, right, these days, they do require a post-qualification experience in that area, in that state, for a certain amount of time in order to get the state nominations, right? And it's got to be a relevant or professional or high skill work experience, okay? So the advice that you have is just study alone and you will get your PR. Is very, very wrong. Now, keep this in mind, guys. The advice I'm giving you today, these are generic advice only. If you want to have a more specific consultation according to your case, you can book a consultation with us. For example, let's talk about Northern Territory. A lot of people, they say that go to Darwin, study 2 years, and you're all good, right? Absolutely, it's not the case anymore. Because why? Because at the moment, ANTI is saying that if you are on student visa, you will not be eligible for the state nominations. You hear me, right? So if you are on student visa, if you are on subclass 500, right, and you apply for your state nomination, you will not be eligible for the state nomination. So that is very dangerous things, isn't it? So what that means is if you decided to study on your 485 visa and you finish your study 485 visa, thinking that you can apply for your nominations because your consultancy told you just go to Darwin, do any 2 years study and you get your PR, right? And you do exactly that. By the time you finish, guess what happens, right? The idea is that Northern Territory these days, they require you that you have to not be on student visa to be able to get the nominations, right? So that's why the advice that just study alone will get your PR is very, very dangerous. Also, let's talk about other states. Let's say for WA. For WA, you need at least 6 months of job offer or 6 months of work experience in your closely related occupations, right? Again, it boils down to jobs, right? It doesn't mean that just because you study and after you study, you will have a PR directly. It's not the case. But this is the illusion that a lot of consultancy and agency out there are telling you guys is very, very wrong. It's really, really not, very nice thing to do, because what happened is a lot of my students, they came to us and they told me that sort of advice and I was shocked. I was just so shocked hearing that. So hopefully if you ever have the similar advice, you should be really, really careful, because obviously study alone these days is not enough. You need to have a good jobs. And that's why you see I keep drilling in the message that good job is very important, right? Whether you want to get 491 or whether you want to get other state nominations, getting a good job, so working in your field is very, very important, right? Now, with tomorrow is the day where the federal is going to announcing the budget for the financial year, right? For the quarter, for different states, right? It's really I'm really look forward to that, because obviously there will be even more changes after tomorrow. But from what we've seen so far and from what we have seen of the changes over the past few years, we are going in a direction whereby the immigration or the federal government or the state government, they do require you to work. They do require you to show that you have some kind of experience in your field, that you have some kind of highly skilled jobs, because it's very, very important to show them that you are a skilled migrant, right? So those days where you just go and study regional areas and then all good, you got a PR, those days are very, very far behind. Okay, so number one, that's a very big lie. If you agree with me, put in the comment box below. These are some of the things I heard all the time from my clients who came to us. Number two, another very big lie is they say that the invitation point will drop because of the COVID-19. So many accountant or IT or engineer graduates are hoping that the invitation point, the cutoff points will drop because of the COVID-19. And that's why this agency told you to continue to stay in Sydney and Melbourne, because the invitation points will drop. Now, obviously, as you know, I'm not a big fan of speculation. I'm never a big fan of, speculating. Will increase or will decrease. I'm never a big fan of this. But obviously, this advice is very, very wrong. Why? Because obviously, if you look into the quarter of 189 for this financial year, let's just talk about accountant, for example. There's only 1,000 spots, right? And I have people who only have 85 points, and they think that because the invitation point will drop, they will have a shot at getting invited because their consultancies, their agency tell them so. So they continue to extend another student visa in Sydney, another student visa in Melbourne, rather than going to other areas that can better benefit them. So the biggest lie, number two, is they say the invitation point will drop because of COVID-19, right? Now, it could be, but as far as I'm concerned, as far as we've been able to see this, as far as we can project, it's very unlikely. With what we've seen after COVID-19, things are just going to get a lot harder. They're only going to target and look at those critical sectors, right? These are the guys who benefit. But for those pro rata occupation, you've got to be very careful, right? You've got to be very careful if you keep assuming that the invitation point will drop, right? I even know that a lot of people who has 95 points are still uncertain. So let alone if you're on 85, or let alone if you're on 80 points. If let's say you're on those pro rata occupations, right? So got to be very careful. Got to be very careful about that lie, is that the point will drop. Okay, very careful on that. Number three, very, 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 very big lie they're telling you guys right now is just get your PR first and think about working later. This is very, very bad advice. Is we've seen a lot of agency and consultancy tell their clients is, you know what, don't worry about working, just study, just get your PR first, just get your visa, just get a permanent, just be happy with driving taxi, just be happy with driving Uber, just be happy with doing, those low entry level jobs. And once you get your PR, your life will be good, you can do whatever you like. Very, very bad advice, very big lies, very, very big lies. And I've seen a lot of international students, because of these lies, they settle for doing low entry level job. They settle for doing the jobs that they love. They settle for pursuing their career, pursuing the degree that they study for. Because what happened is a lot of the consultancies, when they gave advice, they only told them to do courses that can lead to PR. Now it could be dangerous, because what happened is, by the time, if it's purely for PR purpose, it's very dangerous, because what happened is by the time they finish their study, 9 out of 10 chances the rules going to change. And if the rules going to change, what happened is then later on they have to do another degree. It's become this vicious cycle, a never-ending cycle of study, degree after degree after degree after degree. So they keep stacking certificate after certificate, degree after degree, rather than finding out how they can get a job in the profession they studied for, rather than focusing on making use of the degree that they have studied for, rather than trying to work in the profession of that they studied for. They went for the shortcut, and what happened is these people more often than not pay a lot of big price. And I've seen that, man. I've seen that. I got people coming to see us. They got 7, 8 certificate and degrees combined. And when I ask them why you study so much, and they say my consultancy just told me to do this and do that, study this and study that, do another certificate, this and do another certificate that. And I ask them, do they help you to find a job as well? Do they give you advice on helping you to on finding jobs? And 9 out of 10 they say no. And that, to me, is really not a very good thing to do, because keep in mind the student pay a lot of money. to study. They pay a lot of money to do education here in Australia, right? And if you just keep asking them to pay and more and more and more, man, what you doing, man? What you doing, man? That's not nice at all. So guys, the three things, the three biggest lies your agency telling you. Number one, study alone in regional areas, no need to work, and you get your PR. Very big lie. Especially for those who are moving to Tasmania, for example, and planning to do a 1 year study. Your agency might tell you what? Just do 1 year study, you get 491. Very big lie. Very, very big lie, right? Or some people, some agency, they just tell you, hey, just study in regional areas and you get your PR. What? Really? Very, very bad advice. And as a result, man, student pay the price. I've seen that happening, man. It's so bad. Number two, biggest lie is they say that the invitation part will drop because of COVID-19. The invitation will drop. So they encourage their students to continue to stay in Sydney, continue to stay in Melbourne, apply for another course in Sydney, apply for another course in Melbourne. Man, very big lie. And last but not least is a very last big lie is they tell you just to get your PR first and think about working later. As far as I'm concerned, working nowadays is as important or even more important than study. I repeat, working nowadays in your professions, in closely related profession, in a high skill occupation is very, very important, if not even more important than studying, right? So if you want to get your PR these days, you have to prove that you are a skilled worker, a skilled migrant. You need to be able to work in your desired jobs, in your professional jobs. Now, I understand a lot of you study accounting, you study finance, you study IT, you study engineering, not because you want your PR. No, you want a job there. It's purely because of your PR. So maybe you have to think carefully about that approach. Maybe you have to think carefully about that approach. There's got to be a balance point between getting your PR and getting a job. Because if you just purely focusing on the PR thing and you never look at your job prospect, you might look at, your investment might not be a sound one. Okay, you might have to rethink about that. There's got to be an overlap point between a course that can get your PR and also a course that can also help you to get a job. You have to look at the employment prospect these days, and with this whole economy changing so quick and so fast, right? It's so important that you must have some guidance in terms of your career. You must have some plan in terms of your career. So if that's what you're looking for, if you're looking for more than just another admission, if you guys looking for more than just study another degree, another certificate, if you're tired of just studying another certificate, if you're tired of just going to school, don't know why you go to school, maybe some of you like it, and I'm not talking to you. I'm talking about those that really you guys want more out of just study alone. You want more from your consultancies. If you want more help with finding jobs, if you want more help, with finding volunteer work, finding internship, if you want more help with having a proper career guidance, then come to see us at Legally Education. DM us on our Facebook at Legally Educations.